Where have you gone without me? I thought you cared about me.
So we're going to reopen the ABR for today. We took a little break. And how are these different from the other ones below us?
Color-coded.
They're color-coded?
That's the only, I went over the trees that were being removed, that are being removed. I'm sorry. Bob Cunningham, Arcadia Studio. So the...
First, let's have me just
sorry.
introduce the project.
Okay.
I just wanted to know what was different between the drawings that are in front of us. Action may be taken. This is 3761 State Street. This is a proposal for a landscape plan revision and tree replacement to the Whole Foods retail store parking lot, including the removal of 34 eucalyptus, yellow gum trees, a whole bunch of other things. In summary, 54 trees will be removed and 33 new trees will be planted, and 70 existing trees will be protected in place and remain unchanged. Name for the record and your...
Bob Cunningham, Landscape Architect, Arcadia Studio, and Rob Ramirez, Property Management.
Agent for the owner.
Okay.
I'd like to go to the second page here. As I said, the difference between what you have and what you have now in front of you is these aren't folded, and also these are color-coded, showing you which species we're proposing to remove. There are, the pink ones are mature lemon gum trees. The orange ones are, wait a minute, did I make a mistake? No, I'm sorry. The orange ones are mature lemon gum trees. The pink ones are young trees that were planted when the Whole Foods development was done about 4 years ago.
And they're young lemon gum trees?
Yeah, they're the
Okay.
same species, just small trees. The blue trees are Agonis flexuosa, Jervis Bay After Dark, a smaller tree, and also the green ones are Chionanthus retusus, another small tree that's called fringe tree.
So these are the trees that are all to be removed, the ones that are highlighted?
That's the proposal. And then the trees on the second page highlighted are a combination of Stenocarpus sinuatus, firewheel tree, Melaleucas staphyloides, prickly paperbark tree, and Lophostemon conferta, Brisbane box. And you can see photographs of the proposed trees there. So and I'll let Mr. Ramirez get into the reasons why they would like to remove these trees, but what we're trying to do with the replacements is get trees of some substance back in the parking lot. None of them will achieve the great heights that the eucalyptus have. But for the reasons Mr. Ramirez will explain, they feel the eucalyptus need to be removed. Now, the reason we're proposing to remove some of the smaller trees is that, in our opinion, my opinion in particular, the parking lot has too many trees from the standpoint of a sustainable landscape. For instance, you'll see there are 2 trees in this planter which might be 40 square feet. In this planter, maybe 40 square feet. We're proposing to plant trees that will, be substantial, but I don't feel it's appropriate to squeeze 2 trees into a small planter that's going to get very little rainfall directly onto it, and it just doesn't make sense to irrigate 2 trees to keep them happy and alive where 1 tree will do the job adequately. And in fact, I think if we have one tree rather than two, that one tree will do a whole lot better than the two trees competing for the same soil, roots, or nutrients and water. So that's the logic behind removing more than simply the eucalyptus trees.
Great. Do you want to add anything else? And I'm going to
Well, we've,
pass these photos down.
the owner of the parcel is not Whole Foods. I know it's referenced as Whole Foods. It's actually Teachers Insurance and Annuity Fund of America. So I just wanted to make that clear. Teachers bought the property at the end of 2012, December 2012, and since then we've had 5 insurance claims from tree limb drops from these trees, primarily the largest ones. So, we're really concerned about the public safety there. We've had the trees trimmed by an arborist last year, and we still had a number of tree limb drops after that point. So every time it gets windy, it's kind of for me, it's scary to know that we have these large trees. So that's primarily the reason why we proposed the removal and replacement.
Okay. Anything else for your presentation?
Nope.
All right. I'll open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to address the board on this issue? If not, does staff have anything? Does staff have a report or any comments? Okay. We've got some photos, graphs that we should pass around. And back to the board for questions of the applicant. Does anybody have any?
I do. I do also. I'll let Courtney start because I'm looking at these photographs right now.
Are you ready, Courtney?
Sure. In reference to the litigation issues with limb drop, isn't that related mostly to the existing eucalyptus rather than the newly planted trees?
Primarily, yeah.
So then my question would be, why remove the new trees other than what Bob explained?
Well, I think there's, a fear that ultimately these eucalyptus trees will become the same kind of problem that the mature trees are. Number of years, in the future. Nevertheless, they don't want to be facing the same situation 20, 30 years down the road.
With the eucalyptus in particular? Yeah. So the agonis and the chiananthus are not a concern, or?
No, as far as I'm concerned, they're not a safety issue. I simply feel that, we're trying to plant too many trees in too small a space.
So, which leads to my other question of why were too many trees planted in the first place?
I didn't do the design.
But it came from your office?
No, this was another office.
Suzanne Vanetta?
Okay. Didn't know that. Okay, I might have a couple more, but
I
that's
have
it.
a question.
No, she wants to see.
How long will it take for the replacement trees to get as big as the photographs you have on these drawings? This drawing are represented here. How old would you estimate these trees to be?
Those trees are several years old. I believe these two were planted in the late 70s, so 40
years.
30, 40 years.
These are 40-year-old trees?
This is a younger tree, but it's probably, 20 years to get to that height. And this one, again, probably 40 years.
And how old would the trees be that you would be planting?
Unfortunately, they're small trees. They would be 15-gallon, 24-inch boxes on this one. 15-gallon for both of these because simply availability is a big issue, and we can't get them larger.
And if there were more permeable paving around the tree wells, would the trees do better, have greater success?
Yes,
Okay. That's it.
provided we got rainfall.
I have a couple more.
Go for it.
Sorry.
Your opinion is the most valuable in this room.
Oh, that's good to hear. So I see here you have the Leuphostomon at 24-inch box
Yes,
and the Melaleuca at 15-gallon.
yes.
Stenocarpus 24-inch box.
If we can find the Stenocarpus in 24-inch box, we're hopeful. There's no guarantee.
Is there a reason that you chose 2 new species instead of keeping 2? I understand the reason for switching out the eucalyptus, but why didn't you choose to keep, within the same species and maybe just reduce the quantity of trees?
Which species are you referring to?
The agonis and the chiananthus.
They're both small trees, and I don't see them. I don't see them providing the shade canopy that any of the other three trees would provide. We're looking for also diversity. We didn't want to just go in and replace all the eucalyptus with one species. But again, I don't think the agonis or the chiananthus will provide any substance with regard to shade over the long term. They're slow-growing trees, and they're ultimately just smaller trees.
Okay.
Okay. Have you seen the photographs? We have them over here, if you want to flip through them real fast.
No, but I drove by the site today. So.
There's one picture I wanted to just ask that this is what we're trying to correct. And then the question is, how did it, I mean, what was the thought of the original landscape architect? I'll show it to you first, then I'll show it to the TV guy. See how this is a big, huge tree, and this is the little one? So this is where you're trying to say that the little one and the big one don't fit in the spot? Is that?
Exactly.
So-
They're competing for nutrients and water, and it would take a lot of water to keep these.
So what was the logic of the previous landscape architect for proposing a small tree like this amongst these other large ones?
I would be speculating.
You'd be speculating. And so what you're proposing is to remove all of these because this little guy is the wrong variety, and you'd be replacing it with a 15-gallon or a 24-inch box?
Yeah, it's the wrong variety in terms of its ultimate size, abilities. It's just not going to get to be the kind of shade tree that we'd like to have in a parking lot. And I don't feel that any of those planters can support more than one tree.
Here's another example of just what the other architect was doing. I guess there's a tree here, a tree here, and then a tree over there. And we're planning on removing all three of them and just replacing it with two?
Yes, because these two are the eucalyptus, and this is the agonis. We would put another tree here and another tree here, so we would have two in place of three.
The TV guy. That's all my questions. Does anyone want to jump into comments?
I'll just put in my 2 cents that, because I'll rely on Courtney for your expertise, but it seems like that these planters are way undersized, and it's really a shame to lose all this canopy and these beautiful trees. And I think that there should be other ways studied besides the exchange of trees, of adding permeable paving to see the success of the new trees, and their growth will be sustained and viable. And I would encourage the applicant to study increasing the size of the proposed trees to, assure that there will be some sort of shade canopy in the future, sooner than 40 years.
You have any comments?
It's such a beautiful parking lot now with the eucalyptus trees, and I grew up with eucalyptus in my backyard, so I have an affinity for them until one day one of the big ones crashed into our house and destroyed our house. So I get why you're replacing them. I really don't have the expertise to comment on whether two trees fit within a planter effectively or not. I guess I get the notion that they're overcrowded. I think I'm okay with the project as presented.
You want to jump in, Tip?
Bob, did you mention what the size of the trees? Is it what size is it? 24 inches, Bob?
Sorry. Two of them we're proposing is 24-inch box, which is going to be an 8 to 12 foot tall tree to start with. Those in the 15-gallon cans are about 7 to 8 feet tall now. And, as I said, We're finding it very difficult to find trees of good size nowadays because the recession is over and there's a lot of development happening and trees are disappearing out of nurseries and like that. So we're kind of in a difficult situation with regard to sizes.
On one hand, I could share the concern with the building's owner about the safety issues of eucalyptus trees. However, we have a whole bunch of them in front of our office building on Coast Village Road. If you see them up and down the street, and they are probably about 10 times bigger than what you have on your site. They are huge. The one in our building, in front of our building, and it's well, knock on wood, nothing happened yet. But I definitely has some issue with removing 53 trees. Well, that's quite a bit. You probably would change the landscape drastically by removing 53 trees. And I feel I'll probably be fine if the replacement, the better sizes, or the replacement. But if you replace with even a 24 inches box or the 15-gallon box, by the time you take out of the container, they're probably about 7 feet tall, 8 feet tall. And that might take, 30 years to get to, 20 years to get to a certain point. So suddenly it really drastically changed the look of the building. And so unless you go try to find a bigger boxes, which I think might be not a bad idea, but then, we'll probably be fine with that.
Courtney, I'll let you go last and you can be the explanation point. However, I'm not a landscape architect, but I love these trees just because the smooth bark is just like so fun to see. And yes, there's a liability aspect of it, and your client purchased the property with all these trees in there. And it's the role of the ABR to make sure we have beautiful landscaping and to cut all the trees down just to save cars. I think there's a way that you could cut out one tree every 5 years and replant one tree so it's not all happening overnight. And I'm thinking that's what the intention of the original project architect was, which is why there's a little tree next to a big, huge tree, thinking that you wait 5 years and then this is a medium-sized tree bigger than a 24 box that you could ever plant. Then you can get rid of basically the skyline tree at that time. So that's why it is overplanted, because the architect took that in consideration. Now I'm making some suggestion because I have no idea. But I also would guess that maybe ABR required them to replant some of the trees when they rearranged their parking lot, because they redid that whole parking lot and did a whole bunch of stormwater management, blah, blah, blah stuff. So that whole parking lot was redesigned 4 years ago, and there should be a nice landscape plan that should work, and maintenance and thinning out the trees. And yes, we've had a lot of wind, and if every other year you take out a tree, or every year you take out a tree and replace it with something else, I think it's going to be a slower process. But to wipe out 54 trees and replace it with 32 little sticks is not what this board should be allowing. And so I cannot go and support this project. I think it's a little too aggressive. And as a side note, on Cliff Drive, where the Albertson Shopping Center is, they went through and they basically cut down all the trees, and the neighbors went crazy. And it's been 10 years, and the landscaping has matured, and so now it doesn't look so bad. But there was a 2-year time period when you drove by there, and it was just solid asphalt and little tiny things, and people said, how in the hell did that ever happen in Santa Barbara? So we need to be a little bit more cautious on how we propose to take out trees that are beautiful, beautiful skyline trees, but they are having some liability issues for you as the property owner.
Well, I agree with most of what Chair Zink said. It's unfortunate that you're removing 17 mature skyline trees that are well within, I don't know, how tall are they, 40 feet or so? 30, 40? And I'm extremely concerned with how this parking lot will look when those get removed and replaced with 15 and 24-inch box trees. The conversation around whether or not the trees are crowded within the planters, I think, is probably an accurate assessment, but it sounds like there may have been a reason for that. I think the Aganis are great from an aesthetic standpoint, and I would like to see those stay. If they are small, they shouldn't be competing with canopy trees in that large of a way. So potentially there's a way you can keep those as part of the design element. So the three species you're proposing are, again, Liphostomin, Melaleuca, and Stenocarpus. The Stenocarpus, I understand there is an issue with availability with those. They also are extremely slow-growing trees. So if there's any way that you can obtain large specimen of that, I would encourage that, if not require it, or consider switching that out for something that's going to grow a lot quicker. In terms of shading, since that was brought up as the reasoning behind part of this exercise, all three of the species proposed are vertical trees. They aren't canopy trees. They do provide some shading and canopy, but the form is more vertical than it is canopy. So if you're looking at providing additional shading, potentially, consider different species. In particular, I know the Brisbane box is fast growing, but maybe if you're using that on the ends of your drive aisles, you might consider something with a better canopy on it. Again, I don't support the removal of all of these trees at the same time. I think that needs to be readdressed. And I understand the reasoning behind, the removal of them with the litigation issues and things like that, but this is more of a comment for the public at large. I think it's unfortunate that we have to be reactive to these kinds of things in design and what we do. It's a tree. Trees have leaves and they have, things that fall off of them, and, if we're parking underneath it, so be it. So I just, I think that's unfortunate that we're having to make changes to something that's beautiful, that's been here for years, because of somebody that gets a tree branch on their car. So
Sometimes it's on their head.
what's that?
Sometimes it can be on their heads.
Yeah, and the safety issue is, of course, definitely needs to be considered too. But I had one clarification question, if I could, even though we're beyond that point. There are some coral trees around the corner. Is that part of this exercise, or is that kind of a separate?
Different
Okay. I just saw it on the tree list, and as you know, those trees have issues with limb drop too. So
I have one question for staff. Is it possible to get a landscape plan approved that shows a staggered tree removal, like every other year, in this tree, then this tree, then this tree, and approve it today, which then approves the basically a landscape management for the next 5 years on the property?
I was thinking that earlier about a phased
Removal and
approval
replanting?
that's phased, and I'm sure it can be done. I don't know how that would be tracked. Let me find out.
Can I speak? Yeah. We would be willing to do that, the phased plan and phased implementation. And, take your comments under consideration and request a 2-week continuance.
Can you work that out with staff and whatever you need to do in the next 2 weeks with him?
I believe so.
Okay.
Chair,
We won't make any direction until she gets back to us.
Sure.
You have a comment, Tip?
no, you have a question for staff.
Oh.
Maybe a question for you. No, for.
Right?
Can the applicant remove trees without? Let's say you have a eucalyptus tree, they just can remove it, right?
If it's part of an approved landscape plan, they cannot.
But these trees been planted years before there was even any approval?
You are correct. Back when this was a Circuit City, this parking lot was planted.
Yeah.
Then, when it became a Whole Foods, the whole parking lot was restriped, and they did the stormwater management, and Susan Van Atta did the landscape plan. And at that time, some some lemon gum trees were removed, and she was required to replant new trees to replace the ones that were removed.
But not the eucalyptus trees.
I don't remember enough of the details, but
It was some.
there were some removed, and then there were some replanted, and so 4 years ago-ish, that is now the official landscape plan for this parcel.
So, yes, you can condition it how you want to, and we'll just, what we would do is have the applicant let us know, let staff know when another tree is coming out, so that we're made aware of it. If you're going to condition it to say perhaps, 5 trees a year or something, you can go ahead and make that condition as part of the approval today, and they would need to let me know every time they're going to take out 5 trees each year, or let staff know. Yes, so you could do it that way.
So what we just talked about was the 2-week continuance to have them come back and revise their proposal.
You would need to, the applicants would need to come up with a plan.
Yes.
Yes.
Courtney, how does that sound as a direction?
I think it's acceptable, considering the litigation issue and, the safety issues. We just have to determine how many can we live with removing at a time.
And have them come back to us what that they propose, and then
Yeah.
we can talk about it?
Yeah, I'd like to see
So
what they propose.
find the most,
Can you maybe do a straw poll and see what we can do in terms of incremental removals? Like, is this going to be 5 trees a year over 7 years, 7 trees a year over 5 years? Something like that.
I see that they're just looking for a little guidance, and seeing as how they're proposing 55 trees, I don't see why, over this large of a parking lot, 10 trees a year wouldn't be reasonable.
Spread them out, obviously. We wouldn't just do
Yeah.
10 from one section.
Right.
I'd also add that at least my concern is more with the mature eucalyptus. The smaller young trees, I don't have as much of an issue with removing, at once. So let the other board members comment on that. But what I would suggest is just phasing out the mature eucalyptus removals. And there's 17 of those.
there's 17 mature ones?
Of 17, okay. Let the applicant bring back their proposal, but they were just asking for a little guidance.
Yeah, if it was 3 mature ones a year over a 5-year period, 6-year period.
Yeah, so I would say space it out evenly, whatever the proposal is, or the original.
Okay, one more question, and I don't want to take a whole lot more of your time, but may we rely on our arborist to assess all of the 17 mature trees and give us, we hope, a reasonable idea of which is the most dangerous, not to come out first, and go down the list?
That's a logical
Priority
way.
list.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's craft a
How does
motion.
everyone else feel about the gravel paving issue?
I
Recharging,
think if
even
you,
though groundwater near those planter bays, a few parking places in, 1 or 2 in, would help significantly, those trees and the groundwater.
I would say that the parking lot has already been addressed for stormwater management. All the water is going into these locations where there's big gravel pit kind of things. So the water is getting down, and the trees will eventually find that water source. So I'm not too worried about it. But I'm an amateur when it comes to landscaping, and if you want to take out more of your asphalt and put in some pavers to get more.
We'll have to study that, because that involves a whole lot more expense than what we're talking about with simply the removals and replacements of the trees. And many areas of this town have soils that are basically impermeable. We've got an impermeable layer 2 feet below the street at the Lobero Theater, and there is no, the way the storm water got handled there was to take it into filtration and then into the storm drains. So there's no guarantee that we could do permeable paving here and it would have any effect at all. We could go back to the engineers and find out what the soil profile was like here, and if it looks promising, then perhaps the owners would be willing to consider that. But I wouldn't want to commit to it.
And what about the sizes of trees? Anybody have any comments for that? And now let's wrap up a motion.
I think the most dangerous first makes sense. And I think if we're not just cutting them all down at once, we won't get an article in the Independent, and everyone will be happy.
Okay. So someone want to craft a motion?
Go for this one.
Oh, okay.
Two-week continuance.
Two-week continuance with the following comments, to the full board, with the following comments. Applicant to study phasing the removal of the mature eucalyptus trees. Consider keeping a portion of the Agonis flexuosa after dark. Consider revising the firewheel tree to an alternative species, or increase the box size to minimum 36 inch. Provide minimum 24-inch box tree sizes for all newly proposed trees. And I think that's it. Was there anything else?
No. Someone want to second it?
Aye.
Second. Do you want them to add something about permeable paving? We'll study it.
And I would say, and also on the advice of, you said an arborist report advising which trees are the most dangerous or problematic cases, and that will help the board guide the board's decision as well. So if you could provide that.
So provide an arborist report.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, that's all. We'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can we take the colored versions? They were in front of the TV camera.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to the next item. Their photos are rolled up in that one. We're on item 2. Welcome. We moved ahead and we were going to bump you first.
Glad you didn't. I was at another meeting.
We are on item 2, which is 200 Helena Avenue. It's a new item, so I will read the project description.
Yes.
This is a proposal to reduce the size of an existing 1,500 square foot one-story commercial building to 1,292 square feet. Exterior remodel, including new siding, windows, and doors and roof. The existing 225 square foot building perimeter paving will be enlarged by 315 square feet for a total of 540 square feet. New parking lot layout on existing concrete parking lot, new planters, and approximately 144 linear feet of a metal paneled fence is also proposed. Your name for the record and your project.
Clay Rowe with AB Design Studio.
With
AB Design Studio.
Good
Good afternoon, everyone. So this project that we're looking at here is on the corner of Yananali and Helena, down in the Funk Zone. It's currently a sea cucumber manufacturing use. The building itself is in pretty bad shape. So here we are on this key plan down here. Let's see if we're. So here's Yananali and here's Helena. So we've got various photos here. We've got this chain link fence there's a chain link fence that runs the property right now that we're proposing to take out and put in new. This is the existing structure at the back. For most intensive purposes, the building itself is a pole barn with some appendages and other materials that aren't really consistent It's been there for a really long time, and nobody's really done anything other than this guy these are all, actually this photo has, those are all big trays of sea cucumbers drying in the sun. Our client recently purchased the property. Our proposal is to renovate the existing structure as a shell core to put a tenant in there, tenant yet to be undetermined. But you can see, let's see, any other, I mean, it's really hard to get any shots of the building because we have fence right up against it on two sides. And that's the interior side. So what we're trying to do is, if you can see from the concept rendering on the front, is sort of open it up to the corner. Obviously coming from State Street into the Funk Zone, we'd have that presence as opposed to a chain link fence with barbed wire on top of it. What are here's just a site survey. So most of this property is just a big concrete pad out here, and then here's the structure. Some of these areas have been added on. They're below legal head height, and they're really bad shape. So our proposal will remove some of that and kind of straighten up the building a little bit. Here's a new site plan of what we're proposing. So you can see this line here is the line of the current footprint of the building. That's this. What we're proposing is to remove that section, giving us a little bit of patio terrace out front, a little wrap around the side. We're proposing a trash enclosure and a small pad for a condenser. Right now, we don't want to load the roof at all. It's a very light roof, and we want to keep it that way. Part of our proposal will also complete the sidewalk from here to here. So currently, this is all dirt. These are two existing trees here, but the rest of this is just dirt and gravel. It's not improved at all. So our proposal will improve this by adding a sidewalk down to connect to the sidewalk that ends right about here, as well as adding parkway planting kind of in these areas. These are existing trees along Yananali here, here, and here. We would keep those and clean up the parkway as well. We're intending to add some new striping in this concrete lot that we have today. So we would end up with a van ADA space, and then we'd have 8 other spaces, totaling 9, which is well above and beyond. At 1 per 250, it's more parking than this structure needs, which is a good thing in the Funk Zone, as we all know. And then down here, we'd add some more planters in the site, some access into the structure here, some trees. We want to get some greenery in here where we can. This area here would be relegated to open space, not open space like a park, but open for potentially doing some parking. So the owner of this parcel also owns the Indigo Hotel, and so this part of the lot can be used for valet parking. The hotel guests from there to here. There's a small little shed in the back, which is, I think we saw it in one of the photographs, but yeah, it's just going to be we're just going to keep it a little storage shed. Here's the rough floor plan. Again, just trying to create this area as a terraced area, letting the building kind of open out to it. We don't know what's going to be in here yet, but assuming that we're going to need single accommodation toilets, planning ahead for trash and AC enclosure and keeping that screened. And we don't really have existing elevations because there's really not much to show, but these are the basic elevations that we're looking for the building. Like a vertical siding with a little bat, corrugated metal roof, and this would be facing Yananali here. This would be facing Helena, and then this is the back facing the parking area, and this would be facing the new parking lot on the side. So we're just trying to clean it up, give it a little bit of vertical wood, a little rustic, keep the rusted metal roof. The fence that goes around the property, the owner really likes the idea of of doing something kind of artistic, and we came up with this idea of using various different metal panels. So we'd have a vertical stanchion, and then we'd have different types, like maybe Corten and maybe some perforated, and just some different materials that wouldn't have this be a monolithic fence as it wraps. It stops here, and then it wraps back down the side here. So we're playing with the idea of having it look like it was sort of artistic based. We are in the funk zone, and we want to kind of honor that, I guess, randomness that could occur if we hired artists to come out and do this. How would they do each one differently? So that's kind of the idea that we're playing around with. We haven't fully vetted it yet, but that's kind of where we're going. Other than that, it's pretty simple. This is an early concept, so there's a couple things we've changed in the design since then, but from a site planning perspective, that's what we're looking for.
Okay, great. Is there any public comment? Seeing no one behind you, I'll close public comment. Does staff have anything to add? Okay, back to the board. Questions for the applicant from the ABR members?
Is that roof, the existing roof, to remain?
There's an existing corrugated roof that's rusted, and we love it. The owner loves it. We want to keep it. We'll probably have to take it off and put it back on at the end of the day, but yes, we want to keep it.
I see in the photographs it's kind of more patchwork and random patchwork.
There's a lot of random patchwork on that building right now, yeah.
I had one question for staff. Is there a concern how close the trash and the air conditioning can be to the sidewalk? I don't know if you're familiar, because being commercial, there's zero setback.
Yeah, I know in residential there is, but
Let me pull up my plan check.
That's just a question I have for them.
We have a copy right here.
We'll get back to it.
Okay.
Clay, this is all one site, right?
Correct.
And this is proposed to stay as is on this half of the site?
Correct.
And that's basically concrete?
Yes. Okay. This is all concrete in here right now, so we would stripe this end and put some landscaping planters in to create a division between the two.
Okay.
We have two entry points, one here and one off Helena, so this could service the parking for the hotel guests, and this could service just this commercial space.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, actually, this plan check was done by somebody else, and she says that the setbacks were okay, so I can pull it up and.
It's just a curiosity question, just to.
More equipment being.
Yes, and actually, the applicant will be checking in with Building and Safety to have a pre-case done in order to get preliminary comments with regard to building and safety issues, so they can ask at that time. You can't give approval today as it is, it's comments only.
It also said coastal. This has to go to coastal.
And it needs coastal, and it needs a coastal review, and it needs a public works permit for improvements to the right-of-way.
Okay, so this is just comments only for us. One last question. Are you planning on doing any vine pockets along this side against the building that's on the property line?
We don't have anything planned at the moment. We're pretty tight across here, so we're trying to maximize the
You had
parking.
vines shown on the concept drawing.
I did?
Or it's cracked plaster.
It's probably cracked plaster.
Green cracked
Patina.
plaster, okay. Questions from anybody else? Tip.
Yes, I have a couple questions for the applicant. When I look at the proposal here, maybe I need more information. I'm not sure, is this renovation or a brand new project? Because the way you show the site plan, you take out the whole front. And without the exterior elevations of the existing building, I'm not sure I can tell what are you saving, what are you adding on to it, because the rendering show the roof as one style, the elevation show the roof is something else completely, and I'm not sure that affect how we review the project or not, because for a renovation, one thing, and if you had to take the building down completely, redo all the shear walls, the roofing, then it could be considered a new building. So perhaps maybe or you can share that, or you can invite the next meeting and show some elevation and how you want to do that.
We can do our best to get some elevations of the existing building. What's essentially been what's happened is this is a pole barn, that looks, it has a post here, here, and here. And then it's here, 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 and here. And, you know, there's a beam across here, a beam across there, and there's a ridge beam across. And what happened is somebody added a little shed roof to the front of this. So we're pulling that off. So that's part of what we're taking away is some of these weird appendages that happened over time. And on this side, this comes down, and then they did the same thing. They added, they shedded it back out. And it's almost, you know, kind of like you'd see an old water heater on the side of a house with a shed attached to it. They did a bunch of those little moves around this building. So we're trying to pull it back, keeping the structural elements of the building. We already know that we're going to have to frame certain walls and put shear in. That's part of it. But we're anticipating right now that we can keep the footings and we can keep the basic structure of the building, and then infill in certain areas for structural.
No, I guess that's probably something that at the next meeting they come back with some, because I guess the question is, you know, we don't want to surprise it down the line. That certainly you come back one meeting and say, well, after studying it, we realize that the shear doesn't work. What do you want to do? Doesn't work. We have to tear the building down, build a new building. So come back with some drawings or some existing drawing that maybe can. That's one question I have.
Okay.
The second question: the building right now has no bathrooms whatsoever. Am I right?
I don't know. He didn't talk about the existing building.
There is a bathroom, but it's not. It's
So,
not a bathroom by normal
right.
standards.
Okay. So what I'm saying that the location of the bathrooms or the location of the mechanical, it's pretty much up to you guys. You can
Yeah.
put it anywhere you want to.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And most of the plumbing, there is plumbing in the building, and most of it's in this area, which is why we have the bathrooms there. But yes.
those are my questions.
Okay. Questions at this end?
This little off historical perspective goes is you show only about 5 feet, 8 inches over here. Your little
Yeah, I
skinny
mentioned earlier this
walkway.
was an earlier concept before we were able to get in and do as-built and figure out where the building actually was.
All right.
But yes, it's
So
not.
it's not really going to be set back.
It is only about. It's about 5 feet, 5'2", something like that.
And the height of that proposed fence around the parking lot that's shown higher than what you're proposing. You're proposing 42 inches? And you really,
He's proposing 6
6
feet
feet.
at this area and 42 is over here.
oh, okay.
Am I correct?
Okay.
So the 42-inch high fence elevation.
I saw it somewhere on the site plan.
It's on the plan,
42-inch high barrier.
and then it switches to 6.
And then the landscaping that you're showing in the rendering doesn't exist anymore, I think, right?
Yeah, we're still playing with like this. You're talking about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like this was an earlier concept. We're still trying to maximize this depth, and I'd like to get some green in here at the edge. We haven't brought a landscape architect on yet to really vet that out.
We can move on to comments. And this is comments only and indefinite continuance? I don't know how long, what's your next step? Or do you need a 2-week continuance? I would like
Mr. Chair?
Not too-
Also, depending on how deep their footings go for the trash enclosure, it may require a Phase 1 archaeological report. So that would take a few weeks to obtain. Remember,
We'll just call it an indefinite continuance until you get some of the other stuff taken care of. So comments from the board members?
All right.
Yeah, sure.
Or Scott?
Really enamored with the rendering on the cover here. I think it's potentially a really nice and funky project in the funk zone.
Pun intended.
Yeah, I like the character of the fence you're proposing. I think that's the right direction. It needs to have some artistry and some unique character, and I think that's a good direction for that fence. The materials of the building seem appropriate. Harkens back to some of the older industrial uses on the site, so I think that's all great. I like opening up at the corner. The only negative I see with this project is the kind of lack of landscaping you're providing on site. The parking lot feels very sterile. There isn't a ton I mean, in the rendering, you've done some nice things which have been taken away in the actual drawing. So if there are ways to squeeze more landscaping in there, I think it would benefit the project. I know it's hidden behind the fence. If there a way to get that AC unit and trash in the side yard, I think that might improve the project. We could decrease the length of this fence a bit, or open it up more to the corner. On the whole, I think it's a really nice project, though.
Anybody? Tip.
Yes, listen, overall, when I look at the rendering, I think it could be a very nice project. I really don't have a problem with the mass look and scale if it's indeed renovation project. And that's something that I think that I probably need more information in the next meeting to have a better understanding of what's new and what's existing and what you're saving and what you're not. Because for a brand new project and the material, we need to take a look at. But if you're saving the building, we need to see what works, what doesn't work, before we can come up with comments like if this is a good renovation or not. Because the rendering is completely different than the elevations. They're two different things, and I just can't tell which one is the real version. And that had to do with probably the existing condition of the building. So you can come up with the next meeting with some as-built drawings and what you're trying to save, and so we have a better understanding what we're getting into, so there's no surprises down the line. Number two is that I definitely have some concern about the location for the trash enclosure and the AC, because that's a fun area, and if you want to promote public pedestrian walking, and then you put that right in front, and when you have a lot of space in the back, that could be anywhere, I mean, why put it right in front of the street? And same with the bathroom location, especially for the tenants. Might be a better location to relocate them to another corner and make the front more accessible. That's pretty much the whole concept of the fun zone here, I think, unless you really want to use the parking lot at the main entrance. So take a look. That's a minor things. I mean, the trash enclosure, that can be done anyway. But my main concern is the building. We probably need more information before we can determine if it's a renovation project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good comments.
I have nothing to add.
I have a couple. Went out of my head. I would just say pay attention to bike parking. I know that this is a big thing that I'm sure you'll look at since this project is in the funk zone, but every project that goes in, people are using trees as bike bollards, and it just doesn't work. Anything basically that's there that's vertical. So if you could consider that. The other thing is, I know you'll work with the city in terms of, width of the sidewalk and the parkway. Because this is a highly pedestrian area, I would suggest actually minimizing the planting in the parkway to accommodate that. So either, using something permeable that you can walk over, or, just spacing the planting a little bit more sparsely, similar to how it's done across the street, so that you can actually walk in between. Otherwise, I think it's a great project.
And Mr. Chair, just to remind the applicant, I believe did I email transportation's comments to you, Glenn?
Yeah.
I did, okay. They are asking for some, I believe it's sidewalk, they asked for bike parking, so
The
Board
city
Member
will
Miller brought
install
that up.
some parking in the parkway, bike parking, but they want us to put some on site as well, which we just hadn't gotten there yet.
One more, sorry.
No problem.
I would like to see permeable paving used wherever possible. So in the parking lot, especially because it's such an large expanse of paving, it would be good to see that.
Yeah. I don't know how the stormwater management works when you restripe a parking lot. If you don't have to do anything, that's all great.
No,
I was under the assumption you were just restriping?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not doing anything.
It's
in the
not,
parking lot.
they're not replacing.
So
I'd
there's
revise
no stormwater management necessary
say-
requirement?
Correct.
Any new hardscapes
It's-
consider.
It's not.
Okay. So a comment that I would make is that you can still provide like 2 feet worth of planting along this area and still have the overhang of the car. People are already commenting about the trash and the AC, and unfortunately you do have more parking than we need, so this could be located in the back of the project to open it up to the street. So I'm just reiterating comments that other people have made. And the landscape plan will be beneficial at the next meeting. It's going to be a nice project for the neighborhood, and it's really cleaning up. So does someone want to bundle all this up? I took notes. I could if someone wants to.
You have the notes?
Okay. The board appreciates the improvements to this site and would like to have some documentation and information about the existing building and its roof material and building form. The board would like to see the trash and the air conditioning unit moved out of the front yard, or out of the front of the project to the back of the project. The board would like to see as much landscaping added to this site where possible, and looks forward to seeing a landscape plan. In particular, the board would like to see a landscaping adjacent to the Oriana Winery building, and provide parkway planting that accommodates pedestrians. The board would like to see bike parking shown on the site plan, and that is it. Does someone want to make that?
I'll make that motion.
And someone want to second it?
Second.
Any other comments? All right, and it's an indefinite continuing back to full board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You can keep that, and we'll save that one. Those are good.
We're early again.
We're 15 minutes ahead of schedule. This is a record.
This is.
Keep it up, Paul.
They were rolled up in the colored ones from Bob.
Well, I did it and it wasn't.
Okay, time out 1 sec.
Thank you.
Are we really early?
I guess we are.
TV guy. We're on number 4, which is
Number
20.
three.
Oh, but number 3, 28 Anacapa Street. Is that person here? Great.
We were 15 minutes behind.
Oh, you're on 4. Thank you, Glenn.
No, we are early. We are 50 minutes early.
Thank you. We had to find some lost
20
drawings.
Anacapa.
Oh, gosh, yeah, okay.
Item 3 starts at 4:30 and it's 4:15. Do you want to go early? All right. This is 28 Anacapa Street. This is a new item. This is a proposal for a new parking lot, accessible parking space, loading area, ramp, and stairs. And trash enclosure for an existing non-residential building. All new paving to be permeable. This proposal supersedes application. So if you can start with your name for the record, then explain to us why this supersedes the previous design. What happened?
My name is Joe.
Joe?
Joe from Sheridan Associates.
Okay.
Actually, we developed this site and we already got
We're running early.
approved by ABR approved before. But the thing is, before previous scheme, you are combined 28 and 32 Anacapa Street combined parking.
Correct.
But now we decide to develop our own parking lot. So we just resubmit with the re-scheme.
So is it the same exact thing we reviewed before, but before it was reviewed as 2 different parcels, and now it's just this one individual parcel?
Not much different. Only thing different is just a little bit modification of the deck layout and the parking layout.
Okay, do people on the board
Yeah.
remember this project? Okay. So I'm just, why don't you show us the changes to the project then?
Okay. Previously, we had the parking lot here, but we just decided to develop our own property. So we rearrange our own parking space with 5 parking space, and we had a combined deck in here between 2 buildings. But now we put the deck on the south side of the building.
So what's happening right here in this zone?
So we're gonna remove most of the existing as-built deck, and we're gonna put that landscape.
Down at grade.
Mm-hmm.
The neighbors get in a fight. What happened?
Asking.
Well, we thought our neighbor wanted to work with us, but they decided after we went through all the trouble and got the approval that they weren't so sure they wanted to work with us. So now we'll just stay within our own property lines.
And you have enough parking for all the units?
Yes.
Yes.
We have 5 required parking. One is fan accessible.
Does this have access to the public parking lot in the back?
It will, yes.
With this ramp.
It's too bad. It was a nice idea before.
Is what?
Very nice. And, you know, there is a chance
Yeah.
that it will be looked upon again, but it's, we have to keep going.
Can I have you say your name for the record? Just
I'm
'cause
sorry.
walking
It's
late.
Kim Hughes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the owner of the property.
Ready?
So the parking is way behind in the back.
Yes.
And what was here before? Parking lot?
Yes.
What's right now parking? But it connects to
It
that
was
lot.
parking. It was for parking, and it is parking. And many years ago, it was for art installations. It was they made ceramics there.
So before you can go between 2 lots, now you just completely block it off.
Yes, it was all open before.
And then how does this lot get to the back here from another fish driveway?
They have their own driveway.
Okay. I'm trying to jog my memory on the exterior elevation. Was there some changes to some as-built grills and doors and things? And
Yeah.
what did we talk about and how was that to be changed?
Yeah, it's not that much changes from previous scheme, but we put just a couple doors and remove a couple windows based on the new location of this deck.
Because now this deck is on that drive aisle side.
Yes.
There's some new doors that are happening.
And the north side, there was existing doors like this, but we remove all the deck, so we remove door 2.
And so what was this material that you're going to be, I guess when you remove the door, you're going to put new material here?
Oh, we're gonna match the existing siding.
And what?
The wood side.
It's wood siding?
Yeah, as far as I know. That's a wood siding. Let me double check. Oh, it's a stucco. Right.
Is the Anacapa street elevation changing at all?
Anacapa Street? Yeah, we removed this portion of deck here. Because to make the entrance to the, to the ramp, we had to eliminate this existing stair. Or this stair will block the ramp.
Okay. Can we take a look at photos?
In the previous submittal, is there a deck on this whole entire, just the north side?
Yeah, there was some.
There was, I remember there was some, but it didn't go the whole length of this,
No.
did it? Okay.
No, because
All right.
that time we had to put the, tonal space.
Yes.
That this time we talked to the, what's his name, Steve?
Transportation.
Yeah, but he agreed not to have a tonal space for this scheme. Because if we put the tonal space, we cannot make a ramp down.
Yeah, okay. All right.
There's ramp from there to there, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's a ramp right here.
Yeah, here.
And then this is, the photographs are down there by Tip?
Yep.
Okay. Well, we kind of did this out of order. Let me open up public comment, see if there's anyone from the public wanting to speak on this project. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Does staff have any comments?
I do not, thank you.
Okay. Now we'll pepper you with questions. No. We're semi-familiar with it.
I'm trying to get a handle on this. Essentially, it's the existing building remaining with a few changes to the exterior, a new ramp, and then some new striping for parking in the back. That's the project. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a handsome, older building that has become functionally more important with the increase in foot traffic in the funk zone, and there's a large demand for more parking, and the funk zone has been excluded from the Garden Street lot, and so this will help open up 200 additional parking spots for the funk zone area.
What happens to the telephone?
We'll have to find a place to put it. I'm not sure where.
In the previous scheme, there were some kind of pull-offs where someone could pull off and let people pass.
Yes.
You no longer have that?
We can't.
You just can't make it fit, yeah.
This is the only area we can put the deck and ramp, because we don't have enough width here. So
with the
we
side
talk
yard setback,
to transportation people, but they agree with us.
Okay.
Or this building is going to be not accessible at all.
Mm-hmm.
Before we shared 20 parking spots with the previous scheme, and now we'll have 5, but we'll also have access to 200.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's adjacent to the city lot.
And that's the entrance from the city lot there?
Yeah.
Yeah, here is.
Oh, so this is the path of travel to here, right?
So all the way to here and all the way to adjacent here.
Okay.
How did the, I'm sure Marburg or the transportation people reviewed the trash location and they find that okay?
Yeah, Karen Gunter reviewed this, and she agreed with this.
So the trash truck has to come into here, then they,
No, it's not a trash bin, it's a trash field.
the wheeled carts?
Mhm.
So then what do you do on trash day with the wheeled carts?
Take them out.
They have to bring all the way the truck can come in,
Cannot.
cannot.
So then do you have a spot over here that you'll be putting them just in the parkway?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the only way we can do.
What about fire truck? We don't have to come back.
It's an existing building.
And this will actually enhance their access because with the gate open in the back, they can come in either side.
I see. What gate are you talking about? What's the gate in the back?
There's a gate.
From the parking lot.
That's right.
Way back. Oh, I see.
The back side.
Let's move on to comments. You want to go first?
Well, it seems to be working out great with the 5 spaces and the trash enclosure. I think a little more organized, so I feel that it's a good direction. Just landscaping is, if Courtney has any comment on landscaping, but overall I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. Anybody else for comments?
Did we do questions already?
We were peppering them off and on. But you have questions, you can go for it.
I do, yeah. This calls out trees to be removed. Do you have a list of what those are, or?
Oh, yeah, actually, we put that on the, the submittal sheet, but I totally forgot. There is 1 banana tree and 4 other trees, but
It's our preference not to remove any of the landscaping. We'll just move it to a different location. The plants that we have are all drought tolerant. They're elderberry. So they're a drought tolerant. They produce fruit.
The existing plant materials?
The elderberry,
Okay.
yeah, the existing trees. And we're just making room for the deck, so we will just move them elsewhere on the property.
Okay.
They're mature, and we've already moved them around. They're amazing at transplanting.
I couldn't see in the photos what they were, so
they're very
just trying to
drought
understand whether it's a full-grown tree or if it's something like a shrub.
No, they are full grown, and like I said, we were amazed at how we were able to transplant them before, and they had a little setback, but they came back really nicely.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just would like to let the applicant know that any tree relocations that should be part of the project description. So if you could let me know what the little tally is for what's being moved and how many,
Okay,
and what
sure.
you're replacing it with, that also needs to be shown on the plans.
Okay.
So, and actually, if the project is ready for project design approval, you may grant that today, but not final.
Okay.
It sounds like what was moved was potentially a large shrub. If you think it's an elderberry?
No, it's a tree.
It is a tree, okay.
Yes, it has predominantly one main trunk, and the canopy is above.
Defines a tree.
Sounds like a tree.
Shrubs can grow into trees.
That's true.
It's a very proud shrub.
It's tree form.
Okay. So we're ready to, if people are ready to make comments, we can give it project design approval, and then we can say return to consent or return to full board for final.
I'd say it's ready for project design approval and can return on consent for any minor items, like landscaping, but it's in substantial conformance with the previous submittal. It's a shame you're losing that nice deck, but, you know, these things happen, and it's nice when you can cooperate with your neighbor, but, you know, it's all nice and neat and on your property now, so.
Thank you. Yeah, and the most important thing is it gets the gate open and the access for the bike zone to a lot more parking.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, is there someone who wants to second that motion?
I have some comments.
You have comments?
Yes, comments.
So
I
let's
was just
take-
making
Oh.
my comment. Those were my comments, so.
You're up.
I think everything looks great. The one area I think it could use some improvement is the railing. I find a little monolithic.
Let's move to the elevation.
I think if it were broken up, like the front railing in the front with some posts, and maybe constructability-wise, you can use that anyways.
Yes.
I think that maybe just a CAD detail that's just been copied, and in actuality, you would have some posts, and I think I would visually help break up a little bit. It was unclear to me what the skirt material of the deck was. Is that
But there's going to be, the old will be, what's that, plastic lumber?
okay?
Timber tack.
Yeah, timber tack.
A timber tack.
Yep.
Okay. And that's a horizontal board? No, the skirt of the deck.
It's also 9/16-inch timber tack skirt.
Okay.
Vertical.
Vertical. Okay, that's probably fine.
Matter of fact, the railing, why do you need a railing?
More than 30 inches.
Which one? This railing?
Yeah, because it seems like it's
Yeah, it's less than 30.
It's less than
Yeah,
30 inches.
30, but I don't remember when, but we've been told if somebody fall to the driveway.
Well, let them be. Let them learn their lesson. I prefer to take the railing off, and it probably looks much cleaner. And
Yes. Yeah, but we got strongly recommended to put the guardrail there.
Well, how about this? It doesn't have to have pickets at 4 inches on center, and it doesn't have to be 42 inches. You could do a 30-inch
30
railing
inches.
with stuff at 6 inches on center, because you're not worried about. But it's a liability issue, and we shouldn't get into that.
it seems like we deal with attorney's issue today, from the first item to the last item.
All right. Aesthetically, we want to make it look prettier.
Okay.
We definitely do too, and we will definitely age it. We will, make it look
Make
like
it
it's
shorter.
been there forever, and do whatever we can to ultimately to look as good as it can. But it's kind of, we have a lot of limitations, unfortunately.
I'm not sure you need to make it look any age, because it could be a nice new railing, but it's probably definitely it doesn't have to be 4 inches, because it's not required by code. It's mainly for your own
Liability.
liability.
Yeah.
So,
So the opening between the railings that you're talking about?
yeah, that could be a little bigger. It could be 36 inches is plenty height. You don't have to go 42 inches height. You can make it.
And Scott had something to tag on.
I feel uncomfortable dictating the spacing between railings. I mean, there's a code, and if you're going to do a railing and a toddler's up there, why would you do anything less than code if you're going to do a railing at all? Like, a car's traveling down the driveway and a kid steps off at that moment. It just seems, as the owner, I would be concerned about liability.
We will, we'll
Yeah.
definitely place those. But I do appreciate any help any suggestions that you have, and I think we should explore that. We'll have the width as wide as we can based on code.
How about low wall?
Well, how about we just tell them to study it, because and we can still give it project design approval, and have them come back to final on consent with additional information about the railing.
Oh, well, yeah, railing or some kind of divider, because as I said, by code you don't have to have railing, so it's it's talk about the liability issue. It's not like you're violating building code. It's just you just want to make sure that low safety factor. Maybe just study at some kind of divider that makes sense.
Yes.
Doesn't cost a lot of money and looks good.
Thank you.
Did you understand Scott's comment about having some type of vertical rhythm happening through here? And they can be brought down through the skirting?
So what was the finish on the railing for the ramp?
Yeah, that's going to be just painted, matched to existing.
Okay. Those are my only comments.
Okay. We ready to make a motion?
Yes.
We have about 25 minutes. We can still talk about this one if you want.
Well, now you mentioned that.
We can talk about where to put the telephone.
All right, I was joking.
But matter of fact, just one more comment. I mean, if you drive by Coast Village Road, that's the building that we are in right now, and it's the same situation. The landing, the patio is about 30 inches from the sidewalk, and we just have a little curb, a 6-inch curb, and we've been there for 16 years, and I haven't seen anyone fall off
What's
the landing
that
yet.
address on Coast Village Road?
1250.
Where Village Properties is located.
Yeah,
And
and it's the same condition,
Ollie's
and
Restaurant.
you'd be amazed. The public is much smaller than that, of falling over.
The concern is when it's a guardrail has certain design specifics when the area the person falls is greater than 30 inches. So this is not that configuration, so it doesn't really fall into the guardrail.
But considering it's a
requirements.
wine tasting room,
That's what I was
midway down, you might want to keep it there.
It's your choice as the property owner. We're just looking for design options of.
I mean, I appreciate that is, from my perspective, I appreciate coming to a board that has design ideas that are helpful for us. And we will definitely study that and incorporate, because from our perspective, we want it to look as good as it can within the reason of being safe.
Which gets you another question. How wide is the driveway now?
12.
And what the minimum you had to have? What the minimum
I
requirement?
thought it was 10, but is it 12?
Yeah, I think it's 12.
It's 12 feet shown as a dimension thing.
But it's minimum 10 feet?
Not really.
No. The private driveway, right? Because ideally it might be better you go to a 10-feet driveway and save 2 feet for planter strip, get rid of the railing and plant some kind of shrub 3
And then
feet
have
high.
no railing.
No
just
railing
have
and
landscaping. That's
and that'd be a
very
much
good idea.
softer, nicer solution than a railing which require a lot of maintenance and.
Narrow drive would slow down the traffic also.
So we're going to give it project design approval with the comment that the applicant, I'll make the motion, the applicant to study reducing the driveway width to 10 feet and providing additional landscaping. And the word study is there. You can look at it and come back to consent with what you've learned.
Solid hedging.
I just used the word landscaping. The applicant is encouraged to reconsider the design of the railing at the deck. In particular, provide some vertical articulation to the railing design.
If the applicant
If the applicant is going to pursue an actual railing between the deck and the paved driveway. Timeout. A question for staff. Have they already done all their stormwater management stuff, or do we need to see that before we give them final?
They can get project design approval, but they can't get final. They are SWIMP exempt because they're doing all permeable paving.
Okay, so forget that.
And it just needs a coastal exemption, so that's why they can't get final yet. They haven't
Then, going back to the motion, applicant is to return to consent with irrigation plan and information on the landscape plan about the trees that are being removed and the trees that are being relocated.
Okay.
And to add the trees being removed and relocated to the project description on the cover sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And that is all.
Okay.
Would someone like to
Again.
author it?
Include the paving material proposed? I don't see that.
Okay. Would you like to second the motion?
Yeah, we just prepared this one, the paving.
We have permeable asphalt. That's the paving material?
Yep. If we're gonna put the new asphalt, yeah, we're gonna use permeable asphalt, and we're gonna use these, what's that, the pedestrian path with permeable concrete walkway.
Okay. Good.
So did you want that comment in the motion? Anything about the paving? No,
You
okay.
can drop that. So the motion was made by Stephanie and seconded by Courtney. Any other discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll announce a 10-day appeal period, and you guys can return to final and consent once you've taken care of your coastal paperwork.
Indefinite.
And definitely
Yep.
continuance back to consent.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you guys.
Joe, that's for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is a continued item, so we actually can hear it a tad early. This is item 4, which is 2981 Cliff Drive. And just for the record, that if people show up during the presentation and they want to make public comment, that we'll open public comment for the people who are late, because we're taking this early. Lauren, I can have you read the minutes of the previous meeting, or at least review them.
Do you have them?
Not yet. Thank you. Add your name for the record.
I'm Jeffrey Stoutenborough, architect for the project.
And I'm Jill Van Wee, the owner, County of Santa Barbara, Parks Division.
All right. We're going to go through the minutes of the previous meeting, and then we'll have your presentation.
The previous meeting, the project was continued indefinitely to the Planning Commission with these comments. The board appreciates the county's efforts on a needed project and the quality of architecture on the site and attention to plan detail of the proposed drawings. Restudy the lack of pedestrian compatibility and access to the proposed new women's restroom, especially the space between the women's restroom and proposed new restroom. Restudy for a proposed darker color for the roof. One board member was concerned with dark sky compatibility issues regarding the proposed skylights. Some board members would like alternative proposals for CMU block, preferably ground face, smooth face, or board form concrete. Some board members were concerned with using the identical blue color used on the Water Resources building and suggested the applicant propose an alternative color. The board understands that there's a loss of some parking due to compliance with ADA requirements and provision for handicap parking, and appreciates the improvements to the beach area. Some board members find the automatic water bottle filler station should be relocated or brought forward. Some board members find the site plan would be improved by combining the existing and new buildings into one building in order to maximize possible future usable open space.
Okay. So how do you want to do your presentation?
I think in general what we'll do is just give a brief overview of, because some of the members are here that weren't here last time, just the basic concept in 2 sentences of the color and materials, and then respond to the items from last time. This structure came from, the form of the structure came from, we came up with early on 24 or more individual different forms and whittled that down to 4, which we then took to the stakeholders. And we allowed them to determine which of the 4 buildings to go with. This was the only one of the 4 that was a flat roof, and this happened to be the unanimous selection between the people there. This was Supervisor Wolf, the boathouse people, and the watershed resources people who are the neighbors on the site, as well as the county general services people like this scheme. So that's where the form came from. And then we developed the materials palette. Is generally, the idea is that it's essentially 2 parts. The building is an economical box on the back part of the building, and then the front half is just a curved wall. And so those 2 elements have contrasting materials. The idea behind the back half is it's sort of a ocean horizontal, a blue horizon idea. So it has horizontal lapped siding with a watercolor that's compatible with the ocean. It's we have changed that color from last time for your comments. It's more of a green and darker ocean watercolor. And then the front part of the building is a curved masonry wall that is sort of indicative of a sandstone cliff. And so the idea is that it's a blend, a masonry blend of split-face blocks that's 50% sand color and 25% gray, light gray, and 25% dark brown.
Are they all the same size, the blocks?
Well, all is a little bit.
Well, like, are they all 8 by 16?
Essentially, they are all the same
Seems like
size.
patterning here is.
That's a computer restriction.
So it's split face, CMU block, and it's a mixed palette.
Yes, and we do have, for reasons of signage, we have occasional spots where we've got a precision face block just where one sign is, where there's an 8 by 8 precision block for the handicap sign to rest on, that kind of thing. But essentially, they're all 16 by 16 split face block units. And then on the inside of the building, that block is precision face, and it's all tan, other than the back side of this wall, which is split face one side, precision on the other. And then, so that's the 2 basic portions of the building, and then the ancillary elements are for reasons of the fact that it's a marine environment and it's designed for, heavy-duty use. There's a lot of stainless steel. So the interior toilet fixtures and lavatories are stainless steel. The screened openings, the vent screen, exactly. The vent screen openings on the side, windows, if you will, are a 1 inch by 1 inch stainless steel mesh screen with a small stainless steel frame around them. And then we also have the concrete elements that you see, and both the stainless steel and the concrete board formed elements are things that we took off of the boathouse renovation that was recently done to try to tie with that. And then to carry that a little further, we also have the fascias, and the entry doors are silver, essentially match the stainless steel as sort of close as you can with paint.
Okay.
So the elements that we went.
You have a neighbor.
Gentleman here that should like to give
Neighbor.
public comment.
Just so that you know, they actually did start, sir? And we actually started this a tad early, and I know I jumped ahead of staff, but that happens. So you're doing your presentation, then I'm going to go to staff, and then we'll have public comment.
Okay.
So you want to jump through those?
Sure. The items that we looked at last time, I won't address every one because some of them are not necessary to take time on. But the one about the pedestrian compatibility issue?
Item 2 was restudy the lack of pedestrian compatibility and access to the proposed new women's restroom, especially the space between the existing women's room and the proposed restroom.
And so,
is this the best site plan to look at, or should we look at something else?
That's a good one. It's okay. Because this is the area right here that we're talking about. And let's say the beginning and end, if this were a path, the beginning is this drain, which is the site is sloped down to this drain, which is existing. And the end is another drain and a sewage lift station. This is not an area you tend to want to go towards. And so the basic thing about this area is it's not a place people want to go. And I think that's the main point that didn't come out last time about that. And so what we're proposing in that area is, since we're not disturbing any more of the site than we need to put the building down, this is the only remaining portion of land, and it's only 10 feet wide, that we're disturbing that gives us a place to conform to the stormwater management plan. And in that area, we're putting a percolation basin. So because of that requirement and the fact that there's no there to go to if you were to walk through that space, I think we would like to keep that as it's shown here, with sandstone boulders interspersed with blue oat grass, which is a native sort of a beach thing, and it reinforces the sandstone material that's on the building.
What did you do for the color of the roof, item 3?
Right, the color of the roof.
Do you have a color board?
I do. Should we put it down here?
Right down on top of it.
So one of the requirements early on for performance was that it would not be a hot mopped roof. And the modern single ply roofs that are out there generally are mostly white, and roofing companies have spent lots of years trying to make them white so that they'll be energy efficient and not absorb a lot of heat. So it's difficult to find a dark color. And generally speaking, you can get your roof in white, and then if it's a really progressive company, you can get tan or this gray color. And we thought that the gray color went with the stainless steel silver accent color that we were using. So what we plan to do is to use that material and wrap it around to the fascia that would be the same color.
The fascia is the same color, or you have a different material as the fascia?
It's a different material that would be painted this color here.
Okay.
And the concept with the roof is that it's a sort of floating flat plane. The spaces where the screened openings are, for example, you don't see a header hanging down. The roof just protrudes out, and there's an opening that has no visible means of support.
Okay.
So it all sort of ties together, and that's why we would like to stick with, actually we found this company has about as dark a roof as there is. So I think that was our hope on that item.
All right. Hold on to those comments, just questions off to the side. Item 4 was the board member was concerned about the dark sky compatibility issues regarding the proposed skylights.
Right, and that the skylights are sort of a key element of the design because it's a daytime use only building.
I know.
And there are 3 for each of the sides of the restroom. And again, the park is closed at night. The restrooms are locked, doors are locked, and there are no lights left on at night. The lights have been changed. There are lights in the inside in case there's an emergency where you would need some light, but we've changed them so that they're key operated only by the park staff. So there's no way the lights can come on at night.
So the roof is shaped this direction, this is the actual road, and this is the ocean?
That's right.
Okay.
So it's a low slope, 1/4 inch per foot sloping towards the ocean.
Five, you addressed having to do with the CMU block. Six.
Right.
You have anything else to add?
Oh, well, we did go out and, per that comment, we did go out and find, actually found another restroom building, public restroom building that was done in the Holmes block, and it was a fabulous restroom. Was really cool. But the Holmes block, we determined, is it shows the facets too much to be used. If we used it on the curve, it would show up how the masonry doesn't really curve gracefully, and so we think the rugged surface would be better.
Yeah. So
Can you talk about that?
okay. The question, what the motion was, number 5, was some board members would like an alternative proposal for the CMU block, preferably ground-faced, smooth block or board-formed concrete.
Right. And the board-formed concrete, we discounted right away because it would be, I think, too brutal. It would be too much concrete. And so we're looking for something with a little bit more color to it. Because there was in an early proposal bush-hammered concrete, and it was just too brutal. Too institutional looking.
What are you showing on this color board here?
So this is the blend that we're proposing. We would have 50% of this sand color and 25% of these two colors.
With that texture?
Right, the split face block texture.
Because you
Yeah.
just said something about it not wanting the split face.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that at all. What we're looking for is, the idea is that it's a sandstone wall, but this is just a lot less expensive. I mean, we're mindful that it's a taxpayer-funded building, and so this is easier to engineer and less expensive.
But that's more than just split face, is it not? Is that?
It looks nice to me.
It is, and I think when they're sliced so thin and shown in such a small sample, they do look pretty mountainous.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when you see the full-size block, they're not so much.
Item 6 was some board members were concerned about the identical blue color used at the Water Resources Building and suggest the applicant propose an alternate color.
Right, and the colors you see here are different colors. This is the color of the siding, the
That's
horizontal
different
siding.
than the Water Resources blue?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
This is more green and slightly darker than the Watershed Resources Building. And then we have an accent blue that's used on one door on the outside, which is this darker color. Additionally, on the inside, there are privacy screens that are masonry, and so we're using this to delineate the men's and women's, those two colors.
Say that one more time?
When you go into the bathroom, the men's room has a masonry wall that is the beginning of the toilet stalls, and that's what you see when you walk in.
And that'll be this color?
And that's this color. And similarly, when you walk in the women's room, that wall is this color.
Item 8 was some board members find the automatic water bottle filler should be relocated or brought forward.
Probably the color rendering is just as good as any. Let's see if we have one that shows how about the elevations?
Oh, that sheet.
Here we go. So from the parking lot, as someone were going to, walk to this building from the sidewalk, this is the elevation that they see. This is the main elevation of the building. And really, the nose on the face of the building is the water bottle filling station. And so we changed the color of the niche and increased the size of the eyebrow. The eyebrows are not really there for weather protection as much as they are for visual cues so that people can see, oh, there is something behind these privacy screen walls, and it's the door I'm trying to get to. And so similarly, we have an eyebrow over the niche, both to protect it and to give it a little bit more substance on the elevation. But it is, when you look at the main elevation of the building, it is the front and center element of the elevation, and it's a contrasting color slightly. So I think that it's findable, and the niche is preferable to us than having something in the courtyard that has bars or guards around it that might be a problem for a sizable amount of the population. You know, the niche is recessed, so it's less likely for people to run into.
Okay. All right. The last comment was about some board members found the plan would be approved by combining the existing and the new, and you've chosen not to combine them. And leave it at that.
Chair, when was this heard?
You were absent, and when was it heard? I don't have the date printed on this sheet. Go ahead. I'm sorry, we do. November 11th.
2013.
So I believe that was a good presentation. We went through the minutes. You went through the project.
Since there were several board members who were not present for that meeting, are there any photographs of the existing building? Previously you had photographs.
Right, they should be in the packet still, unless...
So what we'll do is we'll pass out the photographs. I'm first going to ask staff if they have anything to add, and then we'll address public comment.
Thank you.
Can I see that?
I'd just like to clarify a couple of things. When it was here back in November, we had told you that this was courtesy only. This is within the city limits, of course, but property owned by the county. And we, at that point, thought it was courtesy only. But because it is a coastal development permit, CDP going to the Planning Commission, we've since determined that it is like a regular project, that you would need to make your project compatibility findings, and your comments, I guess, would just say hold more weight. It's not just a courtesy comment. So the reason why we're coming back today is for that reason, so it's very clear. It's just like any other project.
So Planning Commission has not reviewed this yet?
Not yet, no. No, so you're doing it's basically a second concept review.
Okay. Does everyone understand that? So we have a little more teeth, not to sort of say that, but that Planning Commission has not reviewed this. I was assuming when you came back to us, you've already made the circuit. So then that brings back into some of the other site planning issues that if some of the board members have some concerns, we still should ask them and verify that we're satisfied with their response, and if we're not, then we need to tell them so, because it's still within our purview before we give positive comments to Planning Commission that we are happy with the site layout.
Chair.
I'm going to ask staff if there's anything else, then I'm going to go to public comment and then back to the board.
Okay.
Anything else for staff? I'm going to open up public comment. I have one speaker slip. David Scott. And can you turn on the one speaker? Thank you. Can I have your name for the...
Just move it back. There you go.
Okay.
You can just speak.
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
We had a lesson earlier.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm Dave Schott. I'm the closest, most affected neighbor. We share the center line of Cliff Drive with this project. I was here last time. I'm glad to hear that you have a little more teeth now, because that's the way I thought it should be, so I don't need to get into that. I think there's a lot of progress here from last time. I think the goal here, I think institutions tend to want to build something that they get credit for doing. I think what they get credit for here is blending it in as much as possible. There's nice architecture there. Everybody loves the beach. So I think a guideline is not to highlight anything. I think I think it's this elevation here that you have the blue. Is this the street?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems unnecessary. That should be, to me, it would be much nicer to be, I think this is a nice material. I think that's the view we get looking down at it. I don't want it not to be there, but I just assume it blend.
Okay.
I think it's kind of getting them to go against their natural culture to want to build something that they get credit for. I think they get credit for blending it. And I think the boathouse is unbelievably interesting as a property. Now, one thing on the coastal, now that you're getting into a little more teeth, if they add 700 square feet of usable space, normally a project would have to give more parking to allow more use. And I don't see any, I haven't heard any action here that would increase the parking. So I don't think having an additional beach use, which I realize is a revenue generating idea, but I think it's against, if this were a private project, they'd have to find more parking.
Okay.
And it does affect the city because the parking lot is shared with the Douglas Preserve, which is city. So people that come there to walk their dogs, walk up the trail, are using the same city parking lot. The west, let's see, what is that? The east part of the parking lot, I think, is still actually city. So the city has a relationship to this project that I think they have to recognize. And the last thing, and I don't know if it was addressed, you started a little earlier, I brought up the fact that we didn't want the skylights shining up us at night, and they indicated it wasn't going to be used at night. That's good, but 10 years from now, they may start using it at night. So I wonder if we can have any protection along that line.
So which one's your house, this one?
Let me go to the TV. Hold off on this side. So the speaker is located in this house here, and our project is located here, and they share a common property line, which is a center line of cliff.
Correct.
Okay.
But what this doesn't illustrate is our favorite place to sit is right here. And I call this my little bit of Hawaii. We actually have one of the best beautiful sights in town.
Okay.
So this looks like we're set back and shouldn't worry about it. We're actually down here. Okay. And from a public viewpoint, I'm sorry.
No, keep going. And then keep going.
Go ahead, follow your train there.
No, you go, and then I'll wrap it up.
Public view seems to be a plus or minus. We're not public view, I understand that. But Wilcox is public view. So I think the city has the right to determine public view going this direction.
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
Questions if you want.
The one thing I wanted to add, just so that you know, that ABR is not involved in parking and parking issues, and I guess there is a loss of one parking space when they do the ADA handicap stuff, which is pretty standard. And any other concerns you have about parking, you can take with the Planning Commission when this project moves forward. I just wanted to tell you that if we don't talk about the parking, because you brought up a concern that's outside of our discussion as a board.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming and being part of and following this. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, do we have any letters? Okay. Return it back to the board for questions of the applicant.
Chair, so just before we ask questions.
That's right.
Trying to move ahead forward. Should we, anything is approved, concrete? Or
I don't understand the question yet.
My question is, I know that's one of the comments about grouping the building in separate room. So, it's still an open issue?
That's still an open issue.
Okay.
Am I correct in that?
Yes, that's correct. It's just a concept review again, just like the previous, so it's the same.
So what we're doing is we're going to, the goal is eventually at this meeting or the next meeting to make positive comments to forward the project on to Planning Commission. So if somebody has a concern with the site layout and the site arrangement, this is the time to talk about it. And the applicant will explain why they have the solution they have. So this is the time for questions.
Okay. Yeah, I have some.
Go ahead.
It seems to me like you need an access behind the building, am I right, to go from the parking to the boathouse?
Right, there actually are sort of two functions to this project. One is that the boathouse has a delivery aisle for trucks.
Which is right here.
Which exists right where we're putting the building, the existing boathouse. And that needs to be replaced. Basically, the whole reason for the project is that the facilities out there they're dilapidated. And so the drive aisle that goes to the boathouse now, let's see if this...
Cut right to the new building.
Is it this width right here? Is this the current drive aisle?
Yes, this right here is the portion that they're using right now, is that line here. And it's sort of looks like multiple era structures that comprise this. And let's say more than once I've been out there to see the county plumber repairing the main water supply line to the boathouse because the trucks have run over it and the driveway collapses and smashes the pipe and breaks it.
And my second question is the CMU, the women's bathroom will be converted for storage for the boathouse?
Similar use. We're not sure the county and the boathouse are talking about what the exact use is, but it would be something that they envision like storage for the boathouse.
Who owns the boathouse, the county?
The county owns
The county does own the boathouse, and there's no determined use of the women's restroom yet. It could be storage for the boathouse. It could be an expansion of the restaurant for the boathouse, which means that would cut off that path in between the boathouse and the current women's restroom. Or it could be a service, providing a service such as paddleboarding or kayak rental. It hasn't been determined yet.
To answer your question more fully, though, about the drive aisle, the delivery aisle, that was a main decision point very early on about how to locate those two elements, the building element and the drive aisle element on the site. And it was the recommendation of the design team to flip the elements from the way that the county was originally going to place them, so that we placed the building tucked up against the other buildings and put the low flat element that's the delivery aisle next to the grassy park, so that it increased the apparent open feeling when you looked into the grassy
Can you
area.
back out? Can you back out of that driveway from? If you go in, I assume that you have truck comes all the way in, right?
Yes.
To the lift station.
Yes.
Then how do you back out? You just have to carefully don't run into anything and you back out.
The current drive aisle that's there, you can't back out of.
But this new design, can you back out of the new design?
This new one is similar to the old one.
So your problem is the same problem.
It's the same problem, and it's limited by not wanting to take over more of the park with pavement. And the way that that's worked in the past is the boathouse is fine with it, the truck drivers are fine with it. They all come before the sun comes up, basically, which is when they naturally want to make their deliveries anyway. If you were to look at the parking lot and you looked at a car parked in every single spot in the parking lot, you could not get a truck in there now. And they don't. In fact, they all come in the morning.
And I assume that it was a small truck.
Yes. Right. There's no 18-wheelers going in there.
So my question is, if it's early in the morning, then why do they have to go all the way back here? Why can't they just put in front and unload everything? What's the point of getting in and getting out?
They do that when there's multiple trucks. They actually do that. They park in the parking spaces parallel to the curb.
So then Tip's question is, why do you have to be providing this if the people come at 6 a.m. before there's people in the parking lot and they actually park like this?
And just wheel it in. Why we dedicate such good real estate for something that you can't really back out when you come in, unless you use it as private parking.
And there is the mammal rescue. That's the only beach access is on the other side. So they use that aisle coming here to
Where
get
like that ramp area is?
Yes.
Beach access for what?
To rescue mammals on the beach. So the Marine Mammal Center, when they go to do rescues, that's the only path that they have. So that's
They can't go to the front of the beach and just
go down the steps.
No, because there's steps and a rock rivet. I mean, it's riprap there.
Yeah.
So this mainly to rescue.
Well,
this
it's also
wasn't- there's-
to rescue humans.
This is one of the facets besides aside from just the delivery. And there is the storage building right correct. They sometimes deliver to that area as well. So the delivery is more towards the rear of the boathouse.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand it because, I mean, if you rescue someone, probably better off go to the front of the beach and just go to the beach and rescue instead of trying to find a little path and drive your van in and try to go down. I don't know. It just seemed a little peculiar about the access.
I think when they drive down, it's because they have equipment they have to drive down.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it's a requirement by code.
Not necessarily a requirement by code, but if we limit that access, that stops the marine. I mean, we just have to let a few people know that we're not allowing access to the beach at that point for whatever reason. That's just another stakeholder that we'd have to get involved for this project. Yeah.
Those are good questions. Stephanie's next, and then we're open.
C1.
C or
C.
Are you missing the C1?
I don't know if she has a C1. So this width is the smallest. You're saying that the trucks do come by here all the way down to the beach?
The trucks, when they come in, they back in to this aisle here, and essentially this is their drive aisle, just from here to here.
So
And then
if
this is
that's the marine mammal people or a lifeguard
Oh, I'm sorry.
would come all the way out here onto the beach.
Food delivery uses this portion.
Yeah, I got that.
And then getting to the beach, they use this portion.
So her
through
question
here.
is, the pinch point is this width, which is
It
8
actually,
to 10
And it
feet.
seems smaller
actually, it
even
turns out to be
here.
down here by the recent viewpoint structure that's there. That they actually had to redo the rails there.
There's a stone stair somewhere.
Yes,
Is
yes.
that it? Is that the wall to that stone stair?
It's in that right about here.
Oh, it's over there.
This is the drain for the shower, the foot wash shower that's there.
Okay.
And so
That's a wall?
That's yes, it's like a retaining wall, stone retaining wall type thing with steps.
And this is the drain?
That's a
on
drain.
On the floor?
Right.
Okay. And this is the edge of the building?
Yes.
Okay. And these structures are how high? This freestanding?
Oh, well, this is a 6-foot high fence. This is the sewage lift station right here.
Okay.
So it
And
just has a
is that
fence around
equipment that is that high?
No, it's all underground.
It's all underground?
Underground?
With a concrete curb
It is.
and then a 6-foot high fence.
These are two big manholes covers here.
Does it require a 6-foot high
around it?
fence around it?
Can't we tamp that on the manhole cover?
I'm not a civil, but I would suspect there's probably lots of rules why you don't want to let the public have access to those. Nobody goes in this area.
That's that's
Anyway.
existing manhole covers?
Yes, that sewage lift station's been there for a while, and that's generally the big deterrent for people walking behind the building, is because it smells so very bad.
People are still going to wash their feet over here.
Yes.
And then how do
So
they get to the
everyone's
restrooms?
going to go there.
Well,
Everyone who goes to the beach washes their feet.
not everyone goes back this way, though, when they're done. There's also a sidewalk right across the front of the boathouse. I think that's the
Actually, I
intent.
go from here to the
Everybody
restroom
goes
and then
there.
go cut
Yeah,
this direction.
everybody goes that way.
I do too, but I hold my nose when I do it.
I thought it was the women's restroom.
The women's restroom, actually, of all the structures, is not as bad shape as the others in terms of needing.
Is there a maintenance problem with the sewage lift station?
No, the sewage lift station is fine.
Okay.
It just by its nature is.
Is this an open structure?
We have, you can see it on the 3D model there, that white in
Okay.
between the palm
Okay, so
trees.
it
Looks
is.
like that.
All right.
It's basically a trash enclosure with a lid on it.
And that's going to remain a trash enclosure with the lid on it?
It's not trash, it's a storage shed.
And a mat wash station.
I saw the mat wash station and the plant. I'm just looking for ways to combine all this hodgepodge of buildings and things like that. I have another question about the siding, the horizontal siding on the building. Is that a hardy plank sort of
Yes, a
material?
smooth hardy plank siding, lapped.
Would you or have you considered a material more in keeping a natural material, like that would weather, like a weathered wood, like one sees on the face or the shingles of the Boathouse restaurant?
Right, we very quickly discounted those materials because we don't want to be replacing them due to termites and rot.
But those materials have been there for a long, long time on the Boathouse.
Ours is 20 years old.
Yeah.
We're going to
Okay.
keep it just between us.
All right.
I don't know the history of the boathouse. I mean, I know they just recently rebuilt it, but I don't know what they did with the roof or how often maintenance has been an issue. I don't have information on that. Sorry. I think we did that board form concrete to kind of match some of the boathouse, what they had put up in the front.
Have you considered a Grasscrete product or any other kind of product for this truck delivery since it's not heavily used? You said that they typically pull up on the curb.
Maybe that's a great idea, Jeff.
We could propose that to the civil, that the other use of, we're trying to make this useful design that combines lots of functions, and one of the functions of the drive aisle is also for drainage. The grass area all drains to this point.
A Grasscrete product would be, wouldn't it?
It may percolate fine and take care of that. I would have to ask the civil to, I'm not really knowledgeable enough about to know if that would take care of the problem.
And you said that the reason for the skylights was for daylighting, to eliminate the need for interior lighting?
For a number of reasons, it makes more sense to daylight the building than to spend money electrically lighting it. It's a maintenance issue, it's a spending money on a daily basis, an electricity issue, and the well-being feeling with natural daylight keeps vandalism down.
And so there's no lights on the interior?
There are lights there for an emergency with a key.
Okay. And that's the only way to
That's the only way to turn them on. We made that change because of the comments from the last meeting.
Okay.
We were going towards energy efficiency, so we were trying to eliminate the lights as we could.
Are these light fixtures shown here?
Yes. These are two light fixtures that light the bike parking area.
Do you have cut sheets on those?
Not at this point. They haven't even gone to PC yet.
All right. I think that's it for now, for me.
Thank you. Those are good questions. Who wants to jump in next? Courtney or Scott?
Questions? I don't have.
Yeah, I have some questions. So, what is your really good reason for not tearing down the women's restroom and just putting the building here and having fewer buildings on the site?
It was owner-driven, so we were the director of it. We were directed by the county to not tear down that building with that option because they wanted to provide options for expansion of the possibly expansion of the boathouse or providing additional service because there's quite a big public interest in having other services out at that beach.
It's a valid, that's an answer. So thank you for being honest.
It's the only one we have.
Architecturally.
We did early on, the architectural team suggested exactly what you're describing.
But it's not a part of this proposal.
No, what we're looking at is what they're saying, and now we're going to make comments to PC, and
Okay.
PC gets to arm wrestle.
Okay.
I actually have a question for staff in the sense that they basically said that they don't want to demolish the women's restroom because they want to keep their options open for future uses. The community is going to have a concern, perhaps, that if we have another use here like a paddleboard rental, that we're going to increase the number of people that are going to be coming here, and without increasing the number of parking spaces, we're just overburdening an existing facility. That's way out of ABR's purview, but it all makes sense. We're just trying to keep as much green grass as possible, and like he's saying, reduce the number of buildings on the property. What do we do? What do we say? We're asking staff.
I think you give your design comments like you normally do. We are talking about that, and I'll be talking with the applicant more about getting ready for Planning Commission, and I've asked them what other uses would be proposed there. So we need to deal with that in this review and with the Planning Commission as far as what would be allowed or not. If there are any design changes related to what that would be, it would come back to you, of course. They'll be coming back to you anyway after Planning Commission, like a normal project. So we'll be dealing with parking, we'll be dealing with potential use. If it's the storage, I think that's pretty straightforward. If it's other things, another,
Does it
sort of
seem
detail.
logical that that should be decided at this point?
I think they have options. They don't know what they're doing yet, so we're sort of in this middle area. Like I said, I think we need to talk before we go forward to Planning Commission and really figure out if there's some decisions that are made now, and it'll be just whatever that is now, and then if they want to make changes later, they would come back.
One more question that both of you can answer, and it has to do with the number of bike parking spaces in the location. Was this a city staff-driven thing that you wanted to see parking for 7 bikes, or is this something that you're choosing to provide because you know people put the Pike here, but then could you locate these, however number of spaces, somewhere else on the facility property instead of kind of right here?
Well, it was their proposal to add more bicycle parking.
And could you locate it somewhere else, or is this where you feel it needs to be?
It's currently in that location, but we could relocate it, or we could locate it there and somewhere else, so that's not a...
If I could just comment on it. I'm a cyclist. I live in this neighborhood. I go here a lot on my bike. There aren't very many other places to park where you won't put your bike in the way of somebody that's walking to the beach. And the way of accessing this through what would be an essentially not used drive aisle for the 2 seconds it takes you to zip through there on your bike is, I think, about as good as we're going to get on that site.
Should there be more parking?
The county is actually providing more than is required, I think, and they're providing as much as possible. In fact, while we were doing this, the rangers were out there trying to put more bike racks out there, and we had to say, no, wait.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Courtney, did you have any? You didn't have any. So let's go to comments. Whoever wants to go first.
Okay, I can go first. I don't think it's a bad building in terms of the design, the massing. But I just feel like this bathroom is a missed opportunity to really clean up the whole site. And I have some big concerns. Number one, I just feel like the building is really a nice, big bathroom, 11 feet high, front wall. It's almost like overpowering the boathouse. It's almost you come to this parking lot because of the brand new bathroom. So that's one concern I have. The second concern I have is about the location of that. I'm trying to see how related to the big picture, the boathouse, the women's bathroom. It seemed like it was placed where I'm not sure that it solved anything. Number three, it seemed like you're replacing one dysfunctional driveway with another dysfunctional driveway to the beach, which I don't think solved anything. And number four, it's just like the first impression when it comes to the boathouse is the women's bathroom and that whole area back, which needs clean up. And the way you clean it up is put another bigger building in front of it so you can conceal it. Another option may be just clean up the whole thing, rework that area, make it a more in keeping with the boathouse. It doesn't seem like this is the bathroom and this is the boathouse. I have no issue with keeping the women's bathroom, but I think that if you keep it, you need to really work in with a new building And so if you want more square footage for something else, then it should be really reading, because the bathroom at the end of the day is a secondary function. It's not, you don't come back for the bathroom, you come back for, maybe some people do come back for the bathroom, but really you're coming to the boathouse. And we don't want the bathroom to be the focal point of the whole the whole complex, and hiding all the other thing that hasn't been cleaned up yet. So, and I feel that maybe a way to look at it is find a way to tie together somehow, rework the entrance, because it seems like the driveway is mainly to service the beach more than anything else. And if you service the beach, then you need to be maybe a little narrow, than to be 15 feet in a certain area down to 7 feet. It just seems like it's just so randomly random. And so, but let's say that if this is the design you go with, I do have some issue with the back, how it's sloping the front. The wall, I think, is beautiful, the stone wall. I mean, the block wall. And I don't think anyone will miss the building. So having an eyebrow to tell me this is the entrance area, I don't know you need to do that, because the concrete wall in front will really define this is the man, this is the woman. And by adding the eyebrow, really breaking up the block wall. Especially the drinking fountain, it's just such a strong element. It kills the concept of simplicity of that block wall that you're trying to create. And then from the back, sloping the building from one end to the other and kind of kill the concept a little bit too. It might be better to flat the roof if you go with that concept and or flat it another way instead of flatting the same direction as the block. But that's a different comment if this is the design we go with.
Would like to go next?
I will. I just had one comment regarding the landscaping. You're calling out Mondo grass for the ground cover throughout with the blue oak grass. I think the blue oak grass is great, but I'm on.
I don't know. Somebody can't hear you. Did your battery go off?
Here, have mine for now.
Okay, so the use of Mondo grass as a ground cover, I think, is a little misguided. I think what I'd like to see here is mostly native plant material, considering the proximity to the natural, park and beach ecosystems, and as well, Mondo grass is a medium water use plant, and you have that grouped with low water use plant material. So I would keep that in mind and consider using something, again, that's within the native palette. That's all.
You have anything to say, or you want to hold off? I'll go.
I can go. Scott doesn't want to go.
No, go ahead.
All right. I just think that it's unfortunate that it's just being looked at as one building, whenever it seems like this needs a whole bigger to be part of a bigger concept for the site. It needs to be considered because it's going to wind up being a hodgepodge. And I agree with Tip that the building itself seems the big site. I'm just going to seems to be pulled forward and close to the curb here, so that it is the first thing you see as you're driving in here, rather than the boathouse in the view. It wants to be pushed back. In an ideal situation, if we were, getting rid of all of this and starting over, it would be done differently, and that's what needs to be considered, I think, here. And the building's nice, it's fine, but I think it's too prominent in front of the boathouse and where it's sited. Architecturally, the blue, again, it's a little too close to what Watershed Resources Center that we mentioned the last time.
you've changed it slightly, but I think that it would benefit from going to, if not a natural wood material, then something that's closer in the color scape to a natural material, weathered wood would be preferable. And I really like the block wall concept that you have proposed, and I agree with Tip as far as the eyebrows being kind of distracting and up and down in that form just doesn't seem to work with the nice curvilinear shape of that front wall. I like the board form concrete, and I definitely think it's reminiscent of elements on the boathouse and should be kept into the concept. And I appreciate Courtney's addition of the native grasses. I think it's a great idea. And I would like to also, for the applicant to consider, if you're going to keep that, need to keep that sometimes driveway access, to consider Grasscrete. Is there my comments?
You want to jump?
Sure. I think all the comments thus far have been good comments. To me, this is a very special place. It's one of the few spots you can get down to the beach, and for many, many miles, it's all cliffs. So, I mean, it's just a fabulous beach, and it's a resource that we really have to protect. That said, I'm not happy with the way the site plan is now. I don't see any reason to keep the existing women's restroom. No one knows what it's going to be used for, and it starts to create, not a shanty town, but the notion of that there's just too many disparate buildings on the site. And I think removing that building is essential for this project to move forward. I think if it were landscaping, or you tuck the new restrooms closer to the boathouse, anything would be preferable to having kind of three disparate architectural styles on the beach. It becoming too many elements on the site plan. So unless there's a fabulous reason, you know, it's a cancer treatment center or something, you get the point. There's no reason I can see why you would need to keep that building. All the comments so far have been great. I agree with Tip's comments about the eyebrows. I think they look like they're floating on the wall. If they were maybe brought down and in line with the doorway, so they look like they projected from the head of the door, that might lock them in more architecturally. The drinking fountain in the center, it still feels odd to me. It feels like I should go there and get holy water or something. There's just too much undue importance placed on it. And I'm not quite sure how to remedy that. But to my eye, it feels unduly prominent. I think Tip's notion that this building feels like it might be overshadowing the boathouse and its purpose is a really good one. And maybe that's taking a few rows of CMU block off the top of the curve, just to scale it down a tad. I don't mind the colors so much, and I think you've increased the spacing of the stainless steel mesh, which I think is a good move. I like the
You
board.
understand it's not this color, it's this color.
Oh.
It's not this color.
Okay, I thought it was, I could only see that from my angle.
This is the access door that's in the
Okay.
back, and then the inside walls that are in the men's room. There's a vertical wall.
Oh, I see.
This
Okay.
is the siding here.
Yeah, I think you could tone down the color a bit.
If I may, there are a few things going on here. One is this is a rendering with shadows.
Right.
Yeah,
He understands that.
We get it, yeah. In general, I think the building's nice. It needs a little tuning up with the eyebrows and things. I think the site plan, I would have to deny the project based on the site plan alone.
If you don't mind, I'll follow right after that. When we were just here for concepts only, it doesn't really matter what ABR says because you're the county, you own the property, and you don't even have to listen to us. So we can give you our comments where we feel like blah, 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 but in the end of the day, you guys can do anything you want. We're now finding out that we have a little bit more influence as a design review board. The perspective that most people are having is it's not working the way you have it designed. And I know you've talked to many different shareholders involved in this process, ABR wasn't one of them, and you've come together with a solution. So at this point, it might be good for you to move on to Planning Commission without ABR support in the site plan. And you explain your case, how you're saving this for a future thing, and see if they buy into it. Because they could. But right now, one of my concerns is you've got pedestrians that are hanging out here, and you got pedestrians that are going to coming out here, and they're going to want to walk through all these rocks that you have put there intentionally so we wouldn't walk there, and then you've got this bench that comes across here, and it just seems like you're forcing something a little bit too hard. This concrete work that we referred to as a hodgepodge of all these different pieces of concrete, it's kind of what's being created with all these buildings. The building designed is wonderful as a standalone thing, but when you think about all the other aspects and the marine mammal access that comes through here, as well as the pedestrians who actually shower their feet and then get to their car. And there's going to be a slew of people. Not everybody walks in front of these the restaurant watching the people eat their $17 dinners. Or $35 dinners, I forget. But the point is, I feel the site planning doesn't work. But I'm not going to stop the project, and I'll have you continue. As an individual on the board, I would say move forward and see what Planning Commission says, and if they concur, then I'd like to see another design solution come out. Minor tweaks, the way that the roof is sloped away from the uphill neighbor is great. The skylights are working. The only thing I would suggest is 9-inch to 12-inch curb around it, because in the winter time, the sun goes down at 4 o'clock, and I don't know when you close the restrooms, whether you close them at 6 p.m. or at 4:30, that there will be some evening glow. And I think it would be important for the Planning Commission conditions that we see this building as not being used after hours, or the skylights would have to be studied for dark sky issues, because there's a certain quaintness with the restaurant and the glow that the restaurant creates, and we don't want to see these 6 white pimples on the building.
Fewer skylights or something.
It's closed at sunset.
Oh.
Just FYI.
Yeah, so if it closes at sunset, however it is, but there is a concern, and what happens 5 years from now or 10 years from now, and if there was a slight curb built around the skylight, so the skylight, I hate to say, isn't a hole, but then when the skylight has a glow to it, it's a little bit shielded behind basically a little screen. The comments people are making about the size of the building, lowering a couple of the block walls is fine. Maybe the drinking fountain doesn't have to be recessed as far, or maybe that's the ADA code requirement that it has to be recessed this much. And if that's the case, if you pull it forward, I understand you have to have little wing walls. So it's either or. The comments about the eyebrows, this is for later in life. The ones over the restroom do seem like they're floating. The one that's over the drinking fountain is engaged with the ceiling, so this has a little better feel to it. Perhaps you just eliminate these two and just keep the one on the drinking fountain building, on the drinking fountain alcove. But in general, the site plan and pedestrian interaction, as challenging it is for you working out the deliveries for the restroom, the existing left station, it still doesn't seem to be working. And that's just from my own perspective.
Chair Zink, so we're asking for the project compatibility analysis to be done, so if you could
I don't think the board could make project compatibility.
Yeah. So can you be specific about what it does not meet? Because what I need to do is send comments to them, so if you could
members
be
can read.
specific
Item
about-
1 is compliance with the city charter, municipal codes. Does the project fully comply with all the applicable code requirements? Is the project design consistent with the design guidelines applicable to the project location? So,
Sort of, yes.
So let's move on to the number 2, which is compatible architectural character of the city and the neighborhood and the design and project compatibility and desirable. This is particularly neighborhood.
Desirable architectural qualities and characteristics which are distinctive of Santa Barbara, no.
Well, distinctive of this neighborhood, or this existing building is here. This is the icon we got to work with.
Yeah, but
Well, I would say that number 2 is not very compatible.
it doesn't have the highest design standards taken into consideration for the project as a whole, because it's only considering it in
Well, let's move on to 3 and 4. 4 really is the sensitivity of adjacent landmarks and historical resources, and this is the beach and pedestrian access. That could be where we make that comment. And 3 is the appropriate size, bulk, and scale, and that's the placement of this building in relationship to the existing building and what we're working with. So we can make comments in 3 and 4.
And 5, definitely.
And 5 is
Public views.
Public views, and
The ocean.
And I can't, Kathy, I can't read 6. Use of open space. We're by saving the women's restroom, we are actually reducing the amount of green grass. Is that a correct statement?
Or landscaping.
We're reducing the amount of landscaping over here by saving this building for a future unknown use.
I believe that's accurate. Is that accurate, Deb?
Yes.
So that would go under number 6.
I would say the board feels like the footprint, ultimate footprint of all these buildings could be reduced if many of these functions were combined. The foot wash station, the sewage lift station, the future, what do you want to call this, the future
paddleboard rental
station with and the trash enclosure with the restrooms. Were all combined into one concept. You know, maybe the footprint would be much smaller, and you would have more landscaping, and you would, you'd have plenty of room for access drive aisle as well. But we just don't see it.
I think if the existing restroom were gone, it would open up a lot of possibilities on the site plan and improve the overall project appeal.
Staff?
Maybe summarize your comments if you can. I mean, I would say you cannot make the project compatibility analysis items, and there are a number of things that you, like your regular comments, that you would like to see changed in order to meet.
ABR has reviewed the project and appreciates the effort that the county has went through in providing modern restroom accommodations for this heavily utilized public park. ABR is at this point having a hard time making project design compatibilities with the design that we're seeing today, because we feel that the project of the new proposed restrooms isn't being designed as an entire complex, taking into consideration all of the little pieces, all of the functions that are happening around the restaurant.
Accessory
structures. In particular, the path of travel from the foot wash station to the parking lot, as well as from the beach stairs to the restrooms. And the ABR board feels that if the buildings were combined into fewer structures, there could be more open space that is utilized to be used by the pedestrians and the public, general public.
And less visual clutter.
And less visual clutter. Very
or,
important.
we can add, I think, the missed opportunity to clean up the front.
And the ABR is looking forward to an opportunity. The ABR sees an opportunity for the county to clean up the visual clutter that's along the front elevation with this project.
I think we should address one thing with the style of the building. Is it compatible to the existing boathouse, or it's if it come together as one project, then the style could be questionable to be compatible with the boathouse. And the scale of the building, it might be too large for the function of the building. And maybe we should mention that probably ABR would not have a problem adding square footage if everything work together as one project. And perhaps last, to save the women's bathroom, it's not really anything that needs to be saved. It's almost like a mobile home that been parked on site. If you want to have additional square footage, might as well take it out and rebuild it and do something that tie everything together.
And that might be the most, this isn't a motion, Kathy, that might be the best comment, is that we're looking at these three different things all kind of arguing in between each other. And if you decide that you're going to want this for some square footage, if you take this out and you move this around and you merge all this together and then you say, here's my 200 square foot future rental space and here's all these other things, and design it as an entire complex versus saying, well, this will be done 3 years from now and this is what we're doing tomorrow. Someone want to take ownership of what Tip and I said? Tip?
Well, it's both are the comments, right?
I was kind of crafting a motion, and as the chair, I shouldn't be making motions, but I can sort of suggest what a member should say. Would you like to make that as a motion?
Yeah, make a motion.
All right. Would someone like to second it?
I'll second it.
Any other, we can have a read back if you're concerned. Anything else? Because this is probably going to go on to Planning Commission after this.
I think you said it very well.
No other discussion? I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate the progress.
Well, I went a half an hour being ahead of schedule. Can we keep these? Okay. You can take that.
Next time.
Oh, I'm going to end the meeting. Today's the, good night, everyone.
Good night. I found my way, for love came just in time. You found me just in time and changed my lonely